live?
We are live.
Can you hear me all right?
I can indeed, Paul. I'm just
does the sound a bit tinny, or is that all right?
No, it's absolutely spot on.
Okay.
I'm just seeing if I can change my WebEx. If it comes on, it comes on kind of style of thing. So that's fine. That is fine.
Okay, happy?
Can you hear me?
Yep, absolutely.
Is that as big as they? Oh no, that goes. We just want it to be. We just want ourselves to be like this because then it can just
side by side. Yeah, I mean, Opus will chop it up.
Can't they?
I can't. Yeah, and obviously we haven't got any slides and things like that coming in, so that's good because that does confuse it a little bit. I was trying to do the old AI with that bit. So, okay. So,
first podcast of the
first part. To be fair, if this works, I think this. I'd love to do it like this because it's great. It gives you content. There's all sorts of people I can interview in the business, which I'd love to do that. So 100%. Let's see how we do it. Let's go for it.
Absolutely.
Okay, Phil. Welcome along. The first in our sort of mini podcast video series, really. I think everyone knows who you are, but maybe just give us a quick overview for those of us joining us that don't know about you and about your role at Boyden's.
I am Philip Boyden from Boyden's. I've been in and out of the company since I was kind of 16, 17 years old. Been back from kind of university for 10 years now. Slowly taking over from Dad as the years go by. And yeah, we're still very much a family-run firm. Granddad set it up in 1966, and long may that continue, Paul. Long may it continue.
Absolutely. So your role in the business at the moment is quite varied, isn't it? You've kind of, I know when I first started at Boyden's, which is 9 years ago now, I think you were working in our Braintree office at that stage. You were a sort of a jobbing neg at that stage, and obviously you've developed from there. You've got a bit of a background in agriculture and things like that, haven't you, in terms of your university?
Yeah, well, my university degree was kind of a rural estate kind of management degree, which had kind of surveying side as well as land agency kind of side of things to it. But I suppose over the last 6 to 7 years, mainly been based in our head office, Colchester, mainly working just on the sales side, really. Which has been a great experience, and learned a lot from that. Still a certain part of my day is doing that, but we're also bringing up other members of staff to kind of soak up some of the roles that I did there, whilst I'm also looking at getting more involved in the whole business as a whole now, and seeing opportunities, and much like our webinars and those kind of things, heading up the business as a whole rather than just the sales side in Colchester, really. Yeah.
You seem to be a bit of a natural on the camera. People saying that they've seen you on YouTube and things like that. Do you enjoy doing that?
When you put me on the spot like that, not so much. I think that the more you do it, the more you get used to it. In a way, I feel the first time I always have seen myself as being quite a bad public speaker or someone that, you suddenly get out there, stage fright, you completely lose everything that's in your head. But I think that when you're talking about something that you know a lot about, it's easier because it's your craft, isn't it? It's like if you got an airline pilot to stand up and talk for 20 minutes about flying planes, he'd be able to just reel it off straight away. So I think if you're trying to talk about something you necessarily don't know much about, then it can be hard. But once you know the knowledge of it, it's just speaking out as much as you would be on the phone. Someone phoning up and wants some advice on about selling or about letting, you're very used to giving this advice kind of 3-4 times a day, but instead of just giving it to that individual, we're broadcasting it out to hopefully tens and maybe thousands in time of people watching us and learning their development as such. So I think I've got used to it, Paul. Got used to it. I think it's modern world, really.
Very good at it. Very good. And it is a part of modern estate agency now, isn't it? I mean, it's something that certainly your granddad probably wouldn't have recognised in when you started back in the 60s. Very, very different industry back then.
Yeah, well, I went to a concert on this Garn weekend, and my ticket was on my phone, and I said to my wife, just when I went through and registered the ticket, blipped it, and I said, if Grandad was here, he'd be absolutely bemused by that. It's kind of the way the world has moved forwards. It's it's a different kettle of fish, and like with selling houses and renting houses, the basis, it is very similar to what he was doing back then. But certainly the marketing side, which is your side, Paul, and the way that we get the properties out to people has certainly changed over the last kind of, since about 2000 when Rightmove came along. Yeah. That's really where we've suddenly seen a change. And then with COVID, there was another level of change with people not being able to get out and see them so easily. So, the likes of online property tours and those kind of things really has set wheels in motion, as well as giving advice. Today we're going to go through some questions and give some advice. So it's a changing environment, Paul.
Changing world. I mean, digital marketing has moved forward massively. It's a huge part of the business now, which it wasn't when I joined. And I kind of always give the analogy of digital marketing is a bit like the equivalent of if you took 100 leaflets out to a street of 100 houses. The traditional way of doing it would be you'd put 100 leaflets through 100 doors, and you might get a response from 2 or 3, maybe 2 or 3%. Whereas digital marketing is a bit like having a flag or something above 2 or 3 of those houses, and those are the ones that you should leaflet because the others are not particularly interested. So transformed a lot of this industry and all other industries as well. So okay, so kicking off, I mean, this is a question that I've got that you may or may not have an answer to, but it's always intrigued me. Is there the most important room? If you go into a viewing in a house, is there one room that is generally the one that
I think the most important room in the house is often banded about quite a bit, Paul. It does depend on the buyer, really, as to what the most important part of the house is. But if you were looking at averages, certainly in the last 5 years, then I would say the one that gets the most wow factor is having that open plan kind of kitchen dining living space, which incorporates that outdoor indoor living. I know that we're in the UK, so we don't enjoy that much outdoor living, but on days like today, it's 30 odd degrees today apparently, and people want to get those bifolds open and get that kind of indoor outdoor living. I think that is the biggest wow factor room, and probably will be seen as the most important room in the house. But if you flip that on its head and you've got a buyer that needs to be working from home or home office, then that may be their most important room in the house, is that they need a home office for somewhere to pay the mortgage from, basically. As a dead set average, I'd say that it would be it'd be that open plan kitchen dining kind of living space.
So open plan still is very appealing to purchase.
I think with the modern way in which we live, bringing up kids and those kind of things, I think it's so much more a part of the home is, you get home and you're getting tea ready or food ready, but you also want to be spending time with the kids whilst you're getting that ready. And yeah, you could be on the hob, you could be doing X, Y, Z whilst still being there, enjoying some time with the kids. Whereas if you're hidden away in a kitchen, kind of a couple of doors away or a couple of rooms away from the lounge, then it creates that separation of family time. Unfortunately, with the way that we the hours that we have to work nowadays to pay for these mortgages, family time is limited, and it's high regarded, isn't it? Really, I don't know what the word.
It's precious time. Precious time.
Yeah, precious. For sure. There you go. Good word.
But you come on to nicely about the cost of things. So leads me on nicely to. I mean, interest rates were reduced for the first time.
Yeah,
I think it was last week, the week before last.
Yeah, 0.25. Yeah.
0.25. So it's the first drop for a number of years.
It's
any impact?
It's more of a nice headline for marketing, I suppose, really, in terms of pounds in your bank. It makes a little bit of difference. I had a quick look just this morning. So if you were lending £300,000 over 25 years, I think it was just underneath. I think it was about £45 per calendar month difference. So it is an amount of money. Look, what's that, £550 a year. So it's a decent amount of money, but in terms of, it's not thousands of pounds worth of saving, but it's certainly a step in the right direction. And it is it's a good tagline for showing the market's potentially opening up a bit. In a way, it's a shame that they did it when they did it, because they've kind of done it just when everyone was going off on holiday for the summer break anyway. So historically,
because there was pressure or talk about it potentially happening before an election, and that it could have happened there, and obviously that didn't happen. So
whereas I feel like we haven't seen the full good feeling or good response from it, because so many people have been away, really. Market slowed down. The market hasn't slowed down, but the amount of viewers about always kind of just drops off a bit. So maybe it might have been quieter without it, but it's a good step in the right direction, Paul. Good step in the right direction.
But in terms of trends, then, so coming on to that, so just talk for those that wouldn't know, what are the general trends of the property market over the course of a year?
So, what, as in specific times of the year that are better?
Yeah, times of the year, peaks and troughs,
something like that. So, historically, you've got to look back pre-COVID for the history of this, because of post-COVID, no one really went away. So it was just constant. It was madness, really. If you went away during those first couple of years after COVID, you'd be missing out on a lot of stuff. But if you look pre-COVID, 15 to 19, April to late June, usually a good time to get a deal done. So if you came to the market kind of late April, May, you'd look to get a good number of viewings before the kids break up from school. So kind of late June, early July, those kind of times can be quite good for getting a sale kind of tied up. And then historically, another good time is once the kids go back to school. So looking at September through to kind of late October, November kind of time for tying a deal up. January, bit hot and cold. Some years you kind of come back in the new year and bang, there's viewings happening, loads of stuff really going on. This year it took a little bit more time to come. It was kind of February was actually quite busy, and then Easter came really early this year, which was a bit quirky. And we actually saw the market kind of picking up in in May and June, a little bit more historic on that front. But they're your two kind of main bits of the market. And as I say, if you the times to avoid going to market really are, well, not wanting to do ourselves out of business, but is August really. If you're thinking of going on now, you're better off probably just waiting 2 more weeks. Kind of do it on a quiet or discreet market. We can talk to people that we know are looking at this time of year. We can get it straight out to them now, and then go for a full opening in kind of the first week of September. Hit on the market, hit the portals, and really go to town then. That's what my advice would be if someone was looking to come to the market right now.
So let's see what happens with about to come potentially into that sort of boost or peak, if you like, and then an interest rate reduction. Let's see what impact that has. Yeah. Okay. Going on from that then, so you're looking at making, you're selling your house. Are there any, give us the top 3 mistakes that people might make when they're looking to sell? What are the common traps that people fall into?
So top 3 mistakes when selling your home. First of all, putting on for too much. If you price it out of the market, you're just not going to get the interest there. And without the interest, without that kind of excitement, it is very hard to get people to pay the most for it. So really, pricing strategy is key. Try not to rush the process as well. I know that sounds strange, but sometimes the best buyer isn't the quickest buyer. If someone is the quickest buyer, they usually know that, and they'll often negotiate quite hard on that factor to try and get the best price for it. It depends what you want. At an appraisal, I'll sit down and chat to someone and say, what are you looking to achieve from this? Do you want to get to your end goal quickly with a little bit less, or do you want to get to the end goal in a slightly slower process, but at the best price possible? And, each individual is different. It sounds stupid to think, oh yeah, someone's going to accept less to get to somewhere quicker. But, people's situation is there. And then I always say this, but again and again, it's just not getting the house ready for market enough, not decluttering, not finishing off on those little jobs that have been sitting on the side for the last kind of couple of years. Just make your house look the way you'd want it to look if you were going and viewing something else, basically.
Which is hard to do, kind of living in it all the time. Sometimes you don't see. Invite
ourselves out, or get a friend that you can trust, and make them be brutally honest. Because of what you don't want to do is you don't want to put something on when you could spend a weekend and it could look so much better, and you could end up getting 10, 15, 20 grand more for it, or a skip, get a 4-yard skip for £250, skip a lot of stuff, and it just makes the space so much better. So declutter, try not to rush the process, and put it on for the right amount, really, for what you want to achieve from it.
Okay, good advice. So coming on to viewings then, how does a first viewing compare with second or subsequent viewings? What's the kind of mindset that people are in at this point?
So I suppose the difference between first and second viewings, I say to my clients, is often us. I want to be doing the first viewing. Right. That's the opportunity for us to do what you pay us for. It's you get a lot more people that are just having a look. That's for us to kind of condense down the rubbish. And also, if we know that they're serious, it also gives us the opportunity to sell that house If there's some issues or some concerns they've got about it, then we're a lot more likely to be able to turn that negative into a positive. Like, say, we were talking about not having that open plan kind of kitchen diner. If we're in there and they go, oh, the kitchen's a bit small, we could say, well, that wall there's non-load bearing. You could go through there and create that kind of open plan kitchen living dining space that you want. Whereas if the vendor was carrying out the viewing, they may well keep stum and not open up about these potential issues. And in fact,
or even take it personally, take it as personal criticism.
Yeah, take it as personal criticism, and sometimes it's worse than that. They will give feedback to the vendor there, saying, "Oh, lovely house, absolutely love it. Don't sell it to anyone else. We love it. Oh, it's our dream home." And then we're trying to chase them up for the next 3 days and we can't get a hold of them. That vendor is going to be like, Boyden's, what? They told me they loved it. They told me it was the best house they'd ever had. And you're telling me that they won't even pick up the phone to you, because people will tell you something to your face that is very different to what they actually feel. Whereas if we're doing it, they'll open up, be open up front and honest. And often we can be a little bit more sharp with some of the questioning. The police are busy this morning, Paul. But the second viewings are more about a bit more of a deep dive. That tends to be where I get a vendor to carry them out sometimes if they're confident.
Okay.
With us involved, but it's a case-by-case basis on that front. But, you know, that's where there's a bit more of a deep dive on the property, bit more about actually living in it. And it also, I find that once a buyer and a seller has eyeballed each other, it actually gains a little bit more of a, I suppose, not a contract, but they've eyed each other up and they're less likely to mess each other about having met each other. You know, in the case of a survey coming back or something like that, you know, it brings a stronger relationship throughout the process. So that's where I sometimes say on a second viewing, let's get you, let's get the buyer and the vendor to meet, because it makes it more of a relationship as such, really. But yeah, that's the main difference between a first and a second viewing. And the absolute worst thing you can do is be at the property on a first viewing, sitting in the lounge with no music on and reading a magazine, just sitting there, because the viewer will just feel so nervous of what's going on. They'll just think you're listening in to exactly what's happening. Even the agent, us as an agent, feel nervous because it feels like we are being tested to say, oh, have you mentioned this? Have you mentioned that? Just don't do that. If you want to be at the property, if the weather's nice, sit outside, fine, lovely. Or if the weather's not so nice, but you really want to be there, put the TV on, put the radio on and kind of act normal. But just don't homely. Yeah, don't sit in the lounge in dead silence, flicking through a magazine that we know you're not reading.
Okay. So there's a lot of psychology involved in all of this, which is perhaps not surprising, but a lot of psychological things here. And in terms of that, then, I mean, you sort of touched on things here as well. I know that I've seen you do viewings where you're quite sort of visionary in the sense of, well, I think there's an element of what a house is or what a property is and what it could be are two very different things, but not everybody is able to see that, are they?
Yeah, I think that when you're physically doing a viewing, you need to point out what could be done in the right situation. You know, if one of our first kind of questions that I ask people when I meet them at the doorstep is like, oh, do you know the area, first of all? Because if they know the area already, then I don't need to tell them how great the area is. I will still tell them a bit about the area. And then two is, are you looking to do much work or any work to to your onward. And if they say, oh no, we're not looking to do anything, then I'll only say little pointers of what potentially you could do. Whereas if someone's saying, oh yeah, we're open to doing work, then I'll kind of say you could do X, Y, Z, and those kind of things. I did a viewing on Friday, and they were open to work, and there was quite a simple thing upstairs, which was just put a door in and take down a partition wall, and you'd end up with a fantastic principal suite. And they were like, wow, yeah, that is so much more better use of the space than what is available. And they were like, yeah, you've done this before. That was their words. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of, it's what we're here for, is to open up people's ideas to what a house could be. I was working out roughly how many properties I've been in round Colchester over the last few years, and I think it's close to about 1,500 properties I've been in and valued over the last 6 years, which is a huge amount of properties.
Yeah,
and that is, through that you get a feeling of what you do to places, really, more than someone that might only go out to view 10 houses every 10 years. So it's you've got to pass on that little bit of knowledge that we've come up against, really.
Yeah, and not just literally here is the room, here is the room, here is the room. It's kind of there's a bit more to it.
This is a kitchen. Well done. Yeah. I was struggling with help on that front.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. So something that is kind of fascinated me ever since I sort of joined Boydens, and I think there's a lot to it. And I think it's kind of you kind of undervalue it at your peril, if you excuse the pun. But how do you value a property? And I've kind of always thought, especially if Phil, we said, right, Phil, are the principles the same? If we said, Phil, go and work in Norwich and value a property, what are the principles that, I know there's stuff about areas, but what are the key things that you would do in order to come up with a price?
You first you look at the type of property. I suppose that if you're stemming it right back to first things we ask is it freehold? Is it leasehold? Is it a house? Is it a bungalow? Is it semi-detached? Is it detached? Is it terraced? Is it, how many bedrooms has it got? How many bathrooms has it got? These are, you tend to jump straight into where it is and comparables, whereas you actually start valuing a house by looking at what it actually is. Is it a detached house? Yeah, or those main demographics are your first building blocks as to how you get to a value on it. A lot of houses in Colchester, a detached house is going to be more expensive than a flat. There are some anomalies in the town, but as a general, if you're going out to a 2-bedroom flat, straight away in your head you know roughly what the price is going to be. So type of property for a start, and then you break down areas. Is it west of Colchester? Is it south? Is it north? Where is it close to the station? Is it in one of the popular villages over to the north? How commutable is it? How well laid out is it? Those kind of things in terms of areas. And then you go down the route of condition of the property. Is it in good condition? Work out whether it needs work. If it needs work, then you've got to take a view on that. If it's a thatched cottage that needs rethatching, wow, that's going to be a hell of a lot of money that's going to be coming out of it. Is it a property that's been stood since the 1940s and it hasn't got central heating? So central heating needs to be put into it. And then you go the other way. Is it a property that was built last year and it's got a air source heat pump and it actually pays you to heat it over the year and you're actually in credit because of how eco-friendly it is? We've done a video tour, Paul, of a passive house up in
passive house, yeah.
And putting a value on that is another area of complication because there's so many less comparables for that. As I was saying to Jay, who's the owner of it, it's kind of one of those ones where it's more of an appraisal of marketing rather than a valuation. We do valuation work for RICS and those kind of things, but bringing your house to the market isn't a valuation, it's a market appraisal on bringing it to market at the best price possible to get the best price possible, if you know what I mean. But comparables area, what it is, and then you've got complications in there. Is there restrictive covenants involved? If it is leasehold, is the lease length really long? If it's got a service charge, is the service charge excessive for the amount of maintenance it requires? Are they kind of making up a massive amount in a sinking fund because the roof needs redoing? These are all elements that we look at when coming into finding out what property's worth or what property should go to market at. Really, there's so many factors, Paul. I think that if you wanted to roughly figure it out, it would be what the property is, location really is what it is, and then obviously comparables from that as to what's sold in the area, really. And
comparables, just for the benefit of the people watching and listening to this, comparables, how do you get those? What do they look like, and where do you get them from?
So initial comparables, I always look on the land registry, so physical sold prices, and then from there, then you look on the market, Rightmove or something of those lines. On the market does a really good kind of appraisal pack, which it looks at what properties were on the market for, whether they were withdrawn, because it's quite interesting to see what has come to market at X amount and then withdrawn and not sold, because that usually tells you that property price was a little bit wrong, or whether there was an issue with it. So withdrawn, contract stuff, and then also stuff that is on the market at the moment. But you have to take what is on the market with a bit of a pinch of salt, because I could put a flat over the road that's worth 185,000 on the market for 400 grand if I wanted to. It's never going to sell, but I could put it on for that, and everyone else in the block might be, oh, look at that, they're all selling for 400 grand. They're not. It's just someone put it on for probably an unrealistic price. So that can be really hard, is when there's a lot of stock on the market which isn't selling, and you go out to do a valuation on the road where that is the case, and you say to them, look, these are physical sold prices, so you should be at this level plus inflation or minus kind of inflation or something like that. And then there's two other houses on the road which are way over that amount, but they've been on the market for the last 6 to 9 months, and they're maybe on their second or third agent. So that's where. So
people assume that the price that it's on the portal for is the price that it's going to sell for, which isn't usually the case.
Not the case.
No. Okay. So moving on from that, then, what do you, if you've got a property that is maybe not selling as quickly as might be expected, what are the kind of things you can do there?
Just try and work out why, really. Deep dive back on feedback. If the property is getting lots of viewings, but it's not selling for a certain reason, that usually says something that maybe we need to change, or the vendor could do changing at the property, because of that probably wouldn't be price related, because we're getting lots of interest, but it's not selling. The price is your kind of your grabber, isn't it? Really, it's your pull. So if the price is there and it's grabbing people to come and have a look at it, there'll often be another element to it. Is it something that can be changed? Is it not? We've got something on the market which is getting lots of interest, but it's not selling, and I think it's because it's got old school electric central heating. So what we've done with the vendor there is we've got a quote from the gas board to look at how much it would cost to lay gas to the property, and it's £800. Then put a boiler system in. You're looking at X amount of money. So if we then come up against that whilst we're at a viewing, then we can say, oh yeah, these are the costs associated with doing that. The vendor is more than happy to negotiate on these figures if that is something that you wanted to do. So it's kind of working around that. If a property is not getting any viewings or any interest at all, and you have no feedback to look back at, yes, the property could be a bit of a one of a kind and very specific for it, or it could be a massively high ticketed, 2 million or £3 million, where you're not going to get a massive amount of viewers. And then in that kind of situation, it is about doing a walkthrough tour or something like that we do, Paul. But if it's a fairly normal house and it's not getting any interest, then it will often come back to price. We do professionally edited pictures, video tours, floor plans, these kind of things. Our marketing is good, it is strong, and I'm confident in our marketing. And if there's not the interest there at all, then it does often stem back to price, because that is your main grab line and your tag in there. But each individual is different, each property is different. If there's viewings happening, then just drill down into that feedback. Even if the viewing was a month ago and the feedback on it was okay, but it didn't really deep dive, get the negs to phone up the viewer again and say, look, I know you viewed this, but we're just trying to figure out what is putting people off. Can you just give us some more honest feedback on it? And then we put that back to vendors, and it might be something so simple as parking was a bit of a nightmare, down the cul-de-sac. If that's the case, make sure when we've got a viewing, the vendors take their cars, park them around the corner instead of keeping the driveway filled up, and we park around the corner so that when the viewers turn up, they can just come straight down the road, park in the front, get out, lovely. It won't even then become a thing. It's simple things like that, and that has happened. We took over a property from another agent, and I said it was down a little cul-de-sac like that, and I said to them, when we do our viewing, we'll park around the corner, take your cars and go out for a drive, because she was with the other agent. She was taking the dog out for a walk around the park nearby, but they were leaving their cars there, and I said, no, let's get everything off the driveway. And they turned up, pulled in, backed into there, viewed it, and offered. Whether it was just luck, it could have been, but it's that initial instant of that kind of that ease of use. Oh, I couldn't do this every day. Oh, I couldn't fight this every day. So it's just about selling the property as you can. It's a bit like I think, Paul, you wanted to talk about our curb appeal on property today and how important.
Yeah, I was going to come on to
that. For some people, curb appeal is everything. They want that kind of feeling of so proud to come home to this. Whereas others, they couldn't give anything about it. It's not of their importance. But I always say if there is anything to do at the front, it's just to make it look as good as possible. Some properties just don't have the curb appeal, but just make it as appealing as possible. If you've got a green out the front that the council's supposed to be maintaining, but they haven't cut it for the last 4 weeks or month or 2 months or whatever, just go out there and trim it back and cut it. Just, it's not in your obligation to do it, but just do it for the sake of having that appeal and giving people that first kind of curb appeal.
I think what's the phrase? You don't give a second chance to make a first impression, and I think that is something that you kind of can take for granted. I mean, things like, I suppose, increasingly now you have lots of like wheelie bins out the front of properties and things like that, which again, because it's your property, that's what you do every day. You don't even notice it anymore because it's just the routine. And so things like taking a step back, which I know you do very well. And the example about the cars on the driveway, it's that actually, if I was seeing this for the first time, what would make the biggest impression?
What was that comment again, Paul? What was that comment again?
You never get a second chance to make a first impression.
You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Yeah, it's good. I like that. So
true. Use that in your next valuation.
Yep.
You can have that for free.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on, because I know you deal with a lot of the sort of letting side as well. How do you ensure that you get reliable tenants that are going to take care of your property? If you're a landlord,
it's hard, I must admit, because of it's a bit. I always use the analogy. It's quite similar to the interview process in terms of we obviously interview a number of people for jobs here, and someone can put a face on for that half an hour that you're spending time on it. So first of all, you've got to vet them when they first phone in. Have they got a decent job? How long have they been in that job? That kind of situation, and then something as simple as kind of timekeeping to that appointment. If they've not bothered to turn up for an appointment in the past, and never given any feedback as to why, or it was just like, oh well, couldn't make it, but didn't bother to phone in and go, oh, I'm so sorry, I can't make it, can we do another time? That's often a red flag. How they present themselves, if they turn up in it's just make sure they present themselves in a good manner. They don't have to look smart. Not everyone's smart, but just talks well, kind of corresponds well with our with the negs and those kind of things. So presentation, and then once you've worked that out, just do a deep dive into the referencing. Our referencing is thorough. We need landlord references, employee references, those kind of things. These are all things that we have to have signed off for our kind of rent guarantee insurance. So if the insurers are happy to insure them for their rent, that's often a good sign that they're going to be a decent tenant. So mix that in with that kind of personalness or appearance and timekeeping, presentation, those kind of things, with their financial viability. You're kind of covering both sides, and that's the best you can do, really, Paul. Yeah.
Okay. So Boyden's, has a history of managing lots of properties. You manage an awful lot of properties across the area at the moment. So you've got landlords that some landlords like to manage properties themselves. What are the differences between letting property through an agency or letting yourself? What's the key advantage?
I think might need to ask that again, Paul, because of the that was all going on. You can cut that bit out, and then we can re-go. Go on. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Boyden's is a key letting agent in the area. We manage an awful lot of properties. Mm-hmm. What are the key differences? So if you're a landlord, what are the key differences between managing your property yourself versus using an agent such as Boyden's?
So I'd say that the key differences between managing a property yourself and using an agent to do it is just the changes in legislation. It's just, if you had a tenant that came in even 10 years ago. The amount of legislation that's come in over that period of time to keep
huge,
on top of is just never ending. And we're due for a lot more changes now that the government has obviously changed Labour way. We're going to see some changes to it. It's not just, it's easy just to say, oh, the key changes in legislation. But the difference is, if you don't do those things, then you could end up, if you wanted to serve the tenant notice to leave, or you wanted the property back for whatever reason, you wouldn't then be able to get the property back. It wouldn't held up in court. You know, if such things as the how to rent guide wasn't applied for, if you hadn't put the deposit, lodged that correctly, if you didn't have an up-to-date EICR, that's going to come back around 5 years. That's coming back around again now. They need updating.
Yeah.
You know, annual gas safety. All these little things are very easy to forget, really. And it's easy to say on a day-to-day basis, yeah, I can manage it. I know John and Sarah, they've been in there for 12 years. They never cause me any issues. But it's the difference when something does happen that you then will need help, you know. Stops paying rent. You know, you can call them, you can phone them, you can kind of chase the rent. But then if you want to apply for the court to then get them out, and you haven't carried out these bits of legislation, or you haven't got something up to date, then it's going to be thrown straight back at you. So you've got a property there that's not getting any rent, you've got a mortgage going out, you've got no insurance in place, and you've got really no way of actually getting the property back. And you know, it happens, and it's peace of mind, really, is the crux of it. You can give it to someone like ourselves and go, there you go, deal with that. And you can just relax and just, not think about it. And there's
it's
so
what
many,
we're there for, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's so many times in the situation again, kind of biggest mistakes landlords can make is not renewing their the rent, not putting the rent up on an annual basis, because then the tenant gets out of date with it. And then you need the property back, and then you serve them notice. You've done everything else, but the rent is so out of date with what the current market rent is, they can't find anything else that they want to move to. So they'll sit and wait for eviction. And again, with us keeping on top of rents, it means that we can often pay for ourselves, really, in that percentage. I know that tenants won't like those kind of comments, but unfortunately, if you're not paying market value on the rent wise, then it's kind of a only means that it's going to be a bigger bump when the time comes to kind of move on to somewhere else, really. Yeah.
I mean, I think you're kind of saying that the market, you know, there is a market for, you know, fairly priced properties, good condition. I mean, you can still make money from land.
I'd say for ourselves as a business, I feel that we ask a fair rent, and if we have a property that we feel isn't in good order, or if we wouldn't live there, then we wouldn't bring it to market. So there's some agents in the area that do ask what I feel is slightly excessive rents, and often they do sit on the market for a longer period of time. Yeah. But by no means do I feel that we have or charge unfair rents, and it's always kind of market value, and often if it is a rent review, it may even be slightly less than the market value, to keep the tenant on side in that respect. But it's a juggling act, isn't it, Paul? Really, it's a juggling act.
Yeah. I guess also thinking of it, landlord act as if it is a business. It is a business. It's an investment, and therefore act accordingly. And it comes on to my next thing, which is about what essential steps. So you're a landlord. You're thinking of renting a property. What are the essential things that you need to do, and what are the essential things, steps, and activities that you should undertake?
Yeah, I was having a chat with Brian downstairs, and the last thing you want as a landlord is for a maintenance issue to come up within the first week of the tenancy. It's in the first day, for instance, it is the worst start to a tenancy. What you want to do is the three things are kind of clear, clean, tidy, and just make sure everything works. If you're local, go down there, run the shower, run a bath, get the heating working. Just make sure that the property is ticking over, ready for that tenant to move into. Because the last thing you want is for a tenant to move in November to March. It's kind of 0 degrees outside. They move in and the heating doesn't work, and it just sets the scene as to what could happen. Really, it annoys the tenant. Getting someone out on an emergency call out is obviously our job. We do it, but it's not the easiest thing to do on like a Friday evening. Say when the tenants have picked up the keys at 4 p.m. Just do that. And again, if you're not in the area, that's certainly something that we can help with. We can do a pre-tenancy check, in which we'll go out and check these things over. Spend an hour or so there, making sure everything's running. And also, if there's anything quirky about it, leave clear kind of instructions as to how to use something. If the heating controls are slightly quirky, just spell it out in plain English how to use it. Really, just make that handover as easy as possible. But just clean, tidy, just not dirty, and nice and simple. It doesn't have to be anything kind of too jazzy, but just nice and clean and tidy.
So on the flip side of that, then, if you were a landlord and you bought a property, you're going to prepare it for a new tenancy, that it needs some kind of work doing to it. I guess there's a balance between, because a lot of people can put a lot of themselves personally into property, can't they? And sometimes that can be a bit of a mistake, perhaps.
Yeah, I think if you're looking to renovate a property to let out, it's take the personality a little bit away from it. It's fine to put a bit of personality into it, but try to steer away from bold colours like red walls and stuff like that. It's something that will appeal to the masses rather than the few. Unless you're renting out something really quirky, then if you were going down that route, then I might even look more along the lines of doing a holiday there or something like that, depending where it is. If it's really quirky, you might actually end up getting a better return doing something along those lines rather than an AST 12 monthly tenancy. But that's something that when we come out and give you an appraisal on the letting side, we'll be able to point you in the right direction on that front. But it's often the case if you buy something, get us out to have a look at it before you start doing the renovation works, and then Brian, Debs, Nathan and Angela, etc., will be able to point you in the right direction before you even start doing the work. Because the last thing you want to do is spend 10 grand doing something that we then go, why have you done that? Yeah.
It's that context and that knowledge, isn't it, which obviously we built up over the years of what to do and what not to do. So okay, fantastic. Phil, I think that's everything, mate.
Yeah.
I think we've got it all covered. Is there anything else you want to go over?
I'd ask yourself, Paul, when you're as an outsider, when you are looking at buying a house, what is the first thing? What's the first thing you look at?
I think curb appeal is very important. I think, as you say, it's something that I think the psychology behind that is quite interesting. I can remember a tale of house I lived in the past. We actually had a leak in the bathroom,
right?
And we didn't know it until one day. It had been quietly just leaking away. And one day there was a storm outside, clap of thunder, and that was enough to the kitchen ceiling fell down.
Jesus.
And it was, we didn't even know it was leaking. It was the bath underneath, and there was a leak in the U pipe. But for a while afterwards, we kind of temporarily sort of stapled a sheet onto the ceiling, and it turned out to be quite a while that it was left there. And you kind of got used to, you just walked into the kitchen and there was a staple sheet, but it became the norm for us. I mean, we weren't selling at that stage, but had you gone into that, anyone coming around must have thought, why have they got a sheet stapled to the ceiling? So it goes to show the things that you kind of become the norm for you. And as I mentioned on about wheelie bins out the front of properties, which is increasingly the case nowadays, or cars on the driveway, even simple things of how tidy the front garden is. It's you kind of overlook that sometimes. So for me, the curb appeal is quite a big thing.
And more in terms of, you were looking on an online portal, do you find it strange if you see a picture from the back, for instance, or an internal picture as the main picture? Is that do you kind of go, what's wrong with it? Or are you fine with that? Does it bring you in more, or where?
I think for me, generally, leading on an internal picture generally would make me a little bit more wary, if I'm honest. Right. I think you can do a lot more. I think the thing is, if you are a buyer, so you're browsing to look for somewhere to live, whether that's to rent or to buy, I think generally you'll know those areas, and so therefore you probably recognise the property, but you'll only recognise it from the outside. So for me, it's the variation, it's the quality of the photos. That's one of the things, and the variation of the photos. But it would always be an outside shot for me. So sometimes it's a slightly elevated shot, or we have all our photographs, edited, and that makes them look the best they can possibly look. But I think having different options. Seasonality, if you're looking at a shot from the snow on the ground outside,
snow on the ground in July,
that looks a little bit almost lazy in some respects, and it's just kind of mixing it up. I mean, I think even shots at different times of day, different angles. I've seen shots of houses at dusk, and if you're looking at a list of properties on a portal such as Rightmove, that is going to make it stand out. I think the key thing from a marketing perspective is to stop the scroll. And you want people to sort of stop and look at it. And if they've looked at it, then there's half a chance that they're going to show some interest in it. Yeah.
Super stuff. All right, Paul. Well, good to chat. And I think if anyone's watched it to this end, just drop us an email. And congratulations, because
you've stuck with us.
You've done well.
Stuck with us.
But no, thanks for that, Paul. And hopefully we can do a bit of maybe a 6-weekly kind of podcast style thing. And again, if anyone's got any questions or items to discuss, then do drop us a line or a link, and we're happy to discuss those elements for you. All right.
Certainly.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers, Phil.
Cheers, guys. Bye bye.
Bye bye.